Hi, welcome back to Problematic Projector and the second episode in the series I'm making called FTI about things I'm noticing in human design that are not that great. I'd go as far as say are toxic and are making me want to distance myself from the system. So today I want to talk about this idea of waiting for the invitation, particularly to speak. So when I first got into human design, I was told that you would need an invitation for big things like relationships, where you live, etc., and jobs. And then somewhere along the line, they started saying, well, you need an invitation to talk, to share, to give advice, to say something wise, to say hello to someone. And if no one's asking, we kind of need to shut up.
That's why they need to wait for the invitation. And Alex and I have lots of conversations about this, where Alex sees lots. But if he's not asked to share his opinion, he really needs to shut up.
The projectors, and he said projectors just need to learn how to shut up. Shut up.
I listened to a podcast about projectors, and it basically told me to speak when spoken to. Sometimes I might, like for me, like just observing my projector aura. The biggest thing that I keep telling myself is like I have to learn how to shut up.
So because projectors can see the other so very clearly, and we kind of know what they should do, we got to kind of shut our mouth and wait.
Yeah. So definitely the truth for projectors is you do have to shut your mouth most of the time.
Yeah, there's this general idea that if you speak without an invitation, it's a waste because other people won't apply it. So you just need to be quiet until someone gives you an invitation.
Projectors really want to give their opinion. They really want to give advice, and they want to help other people because they see it through it. Mm-hmm. And when people aren't ready to hear what they have to say, that's when that sort of projection can happen. And so it's so important that it's invited in, because by you having someone say like, AG, like what's your, what do you think? What's your advice? Or, they really kind of invite it in, they recognize you. It really allows whatever you're going to say to land. So
you want to guide, you want to help, but that help needs to be welcome. You can't just kind of willy-nilly run up to someone on the street and go, hey, I know exactly how I can change your life. Like,
oh wow. Especially to other types, like even for other projectors, when I'm with other projectors, I don't even like it when they are, observing me and watching me and reading me, because that's our gift. We're here to read you, read the G center, because that's how our aura focuses on the G center of another person. And it doesn't matter what type it is. Yeah. And it can be very, doesn't feel good if you're not invited.
Projectors literally are like aliens sent from like somewhere else to show up.
My like galactic beetle shirt that I wear.
Because you can just always see like what people are doing wrong and what people need to improve, and like little tweaks that people need to do. And you've got to be careful that you don't share it without people asking you.
So instead of, because projectors naturally they can see what the best way to do things is, they naturally can come across as like the know-it-all or the busybody, or like, hey, like you should do this. So it's really important for projectors to wait for the invitation, which is the hardest part of like just not telling, even if you see the right thing to do.
So much of the wait for the invitation or create the opportunity for the invitation is about like answering questions or giving advice, right? So your advice, your guidance is going to be the best received when someone asks for it.
You can see so clearly what it would take for something to be improved, and you love telling people your suggestions or what you've studied on the topic. The problem is that not everyone is necessarily open to receiving what you have to say all the time.
Like for me, if I'm putting out a program, I need to literally wait for a person to ask about that program for me to be invited in. Think of like,
however, we don't, the projector is like has a permanent case of like being an accidental know-it-all, which like I think we both experienced. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of like what we need to do is wait to be invited in to give our advice. And
so feeling like this and that you have to wait because they don't want to hear it is super frustrating.
The problem with being a projector is that you can feel almost burdened or haunted or riddled by the fact that you have so much to say. Like you have so many pointers for people and so much advice to give and so much wisdom and knowledge that if you were to just say all that, it would be upsetting for other people. Other people would think that you're critical or that you are giving unsolicited advice, and they would feel turned off by the amount of advice that you have to give.
So projectors are very intense. They're very intense. They have this really deep energy. I have a nephew that's a projector, and I was over there recently, and he's like on top of me, and he's like wants to be all in, and he's intense, right? And so sometimes if that intensity comes at you and you're not ready for it, you're like, whoa, okay, what's going on? And it ends up being projection. It ends up being like, get off of me. I don't want you near me. Stop touching me, especially for a young child. For that deep connection needs permission. It needs an invitation, because not everyone's available for that.
They've got the bird's eye view. They can see things other people can't see, but they need to be invited. So they are not here to force, to initiate. They can give amazing advice, but they have to be invited.
Before you share that unique perspective with anyone, you want an invitation.
So we actually have to wait for an invitation to actually share what we see, what we know, and what we want to help people with, because not everybody is wanting to invite us in there.
As a projector, like we have the tendency to give unsolicited advice. So we're supposed to actually like wait for the recognition of like, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. Like, how would you do this kind of vibe?
Come out a little blunt with the unsolicited advice at times, because they're constantly observing a lot, because they are retreating inwards a lot, right? So they have this, people can get a little triggered.
You need an invitation to offer your wisdom or advice because you have what's called a penetrating aura.
The issue with the projectors is that they've got to wait for somebody to ask them for their advice or like, what do you see? And it's so tempting because the projector, then they can see right into you. They can be like, here's your problem. Here's where you need to, but you know how that feels when somebody gives you unsolicited advice, right?
We are very like projecting, like literally like our energy is very penetrating apparently towards other people, which is why we need to wait until we are invited for our energy to be brought into a conversation.
Okay, yes. Sorry. And so projectors want to just share. They want to share these deep wisdoms, these little nuggets that they have, because it's so clear and obvious to them even though it's not clear and obvious to everybody else.
Right.
The thing about giving all of this wisdom is there has to be this space within other people to receive it.
I always gave myself shit for it. I always beat myself up for it. Those are the core of my limiting voices are all around that. And I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be that way. Projectors are here to guide and lead. We are literally here to guide and lead. We need to be invited into the conversation. And then once we're invited, so we love to give unsolicited advice, but nobody wants to hear it. So once we're invited in.
One is you have to wait to be invited to share your wisdom.
Surface. They have what we call like a penetrating type. Then we have projectors, and projectors are very much more open. Typically, they are much more receptive to the world around them, and they're very insightful. They're able to see into other people and really get underneath the surface. They have what we call like a penetrating aura. They can get underneath the skin of the people around them. And because that is so kind of, it can feel a bit invasive, the whole strategy for a projector is to wait to be invited. It's waiting for the invitation. So
okay, so the main kind of like way they try and enforce this. Now, bear in mind, I don't know that Ra actually said this himself. I've actually seen a quote from Ra saying there's actually times where you may have to speak when other people don't want to hear it. You may have to say the thing other people don't want you to say. There's going to be times where you use your discretion to speak and say the thing, even if other people aren't inviting it, even if they don't want to hear it. As an authority, as projectors, authorities of ourselves first and foremost, there's going to be times where we say it. I had the quote, unfortunately, a lot of my evidence for this video has been corrupted because of my hard drive, but I had a quote from Ra that suggested that projectors don't need to wait for an invitation to speak. But it's about using your discernment and just using your authority and knowing when it feels right for you. But in, I guess, newer human design, the narrative is no. If you want to say anything wise, if you want to say anything to anyone, there's even essays out there that people are giving saying a projector cannot say hello to a generator. I can't walk down the street and say hi. That's like me being a bad projector. This is how far it's gone. And the way they kind of get us to do it is by saying, one, you're invisible, no one will see you or hear you, which for a lot of projectors that's a dream. I was like, wait, really? Like, really? Because I felt like I've been toning myself down my whole life, and I've been rewording what I want to say because I'm so scared of offending people, and they couldn't hear me this whole time. I can just say what I want then. If they can't hear it, I can just be unfiltered like I've always wanted to be. So I was going in people's comment sections, just typing, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, like under the guise that they couldn't hear me. I was saying whatever I want to people, and yeah, that thing about you're invisible, they won't hear you is nonsense because everyone heard me and I offended a lot of people. Actually, a woman in this community called Ashley Brianna Eve, I commented on her thing like, oh, you ramble a lot, you ramble, is your throat undefined? And I was like, I can say what I want to say because she can't hear this. She won't even notice I'm just an uninvited projector. And she got really offended, really upset, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I just got here. This is when I was new to human design. I was like, I just got here and I've been told I'm invisible, which I took as, oh, it's a license to kind of say what you want. So I guess that narrative kind of died down of, oh, no one will hear you, and then it moved to like, oh, you speaking to someone is so painful for them, it's like rape. And I actually had examples of people saying it's rape. I think this guy's called Rico or Marco. He's a reflector, he said it's rape. He said that on TikTok. I had that evidence, it's gone. Universe Guru, on Instagram, on YouTube and on TikTok, she said she can't even tell her son as a projector. She's a projector. Her son is also a projector. She can't tell him to please put his plate in the sink because that, as a projector, that's wrong. And even though it just sounds like a nice, like asking your child to do something, it's like picking out a sword and stabbing him with it and saying, put the plate in the sink. I wish I had the evidence. It's so annoying that so much of my evidence got corrupted, but these are things I've seen. You know, it's like people saying it's the same as being violated. It's the same as ripping off someone's clothes and R-wording them, raping them. It's the same as like being a P. Diddy or a Harvey Weinstein, and just, I don't get how going up to someone and saying, that's not your color, you're not an autumn, you're a spring, is the same as like ripping their clothes off and just like violating them. That for me is like Karen bullshit. That's like false accusation. That's like those people in the like US, mainly white women, who just say, oh my God, this person touched me, when they were on the other side of the store. That's what you call crying wolf. But ultimately, mainly generators peddling this has made it kind of believed that a projector talking is like an absolute violation. And now we've kind of been sentenced without a trial. Now we're being told we don't get to speak unless they say. And we're also being threatened. So along with the idea of crying wolf and playing victim, pretending that it's rape when it's not, saying we'll be invisible, which will actually work to our favor, but we found out wasn't true. They kind of threaten us. They say, if you talk without an invitation, we will whack you. We will slam you. Even Ra said this, like, oh, you'll get slammed if you like speak and they don't want to hear it. Oh, we will humiliate you if you speak without an invitation. So it's very threatening language, very scary language that makes it feel like, I've also heard like, oh, as a projector, you're a bird on a branch. If you dare come down from that branch without us permitting you, we're gonna eat you, we're gonna hurt you. So projectors are literally being threatened into silence. Our authority is not telling us to be silent. I understand that we don't always have to speak. We don't have to fix things, because like when you see the answer and you don't say it, you can always feel guilty. Like, I just let this person like trip on their shoelace and I didn't tell them. You know, and I felt bad when people have said like, hey, like, why didn't you tell me if you saw that? And it feels bad. You feel like that obligation. There can be a sense of freedom in knowing, no, I'm not obliged. I can choose whether I offer to help or not. But to go all the way to, no, you just don't ever get to speak because I'm playing victim and I'm being a Karen and I'm acting like you're hurting me and you're violating me when you're not, I think that's really foul. And I'm not saying this because I haven't experimented with it. I'm saying it because I have, because I really did experiment with not talking unless people asked, not saying anything wise unless people asked. And it was really difficult. You know, I actually stopped giving eye contact because then people started saying a projector giving eye contact is so penetrative and it's so painful. So I stopped doing that, and I started that in January of 2022. And by October of 2023, I literally felt suicidal. I was so depressed from just suppressing myself all the time. And I still get a little bit emotional because it was just like, it was such a hard experience. It was like, if this is life, if this is an aligned life, I don't want to live. And the reason I let it happen for 10 months is because I kept thinking it will get bad before it gets good. It will get bad, but it just got worse and worse to the point I'm lying in bed like, I want to kill myself. Like, I don't like being alive. And that's why, as much as I understand the comfort of everyone else, I can't suppress, like, we shouldn't have to suppress ourselves, you know? Anyone with throat definition has the right to, like, if you have a defined throat, you probably need to speak and have that outlet. And I don't think we need to wait for permission. So as much as I would accept the strategy for big things like jobs and stuff, but to say that someone else needs to give you permission before every time you speak is absolutely violating and toxic. There is this narrative of, oh, because people have free will, projector, you don't get to tell them what to do. They say that with no sense of irony. The ironic thing is you're the only one trying to take away my free will. You're the only one trying to take away my free speech. You're the one taking free will. They don't see the irony in that. It's just, well, my feelings. And if generators in particular are that uncomfortable by projectors speaking to them, or projectors have made them uncomfortable or have poked them, I genuinely feel bad about that. That's why I wanted to experiment with this in the first place. That's why I wanted to really try and implement this in my life. But there has to be another way that doesn't lead to depression and suicidality like it did in me, or even thyroid problems. And there's lots of problems that can come from just not speaking for months on end, unless someone says you can. That's not healthy. There has to be a better way that works for both of us. We deserve a trial because it's not a one-way thing. It's not this thing where, oh, I'm putting my aura in you and I'm raping you no, it's two ways. I also feel uncomfortable around generators. Have you ever been around a generator and like just randomly felt turned on? That's because you've absorbed their energy. But I would never say, well, turn that off. Because that's your aura. You can't turn your aura off. What projectors are being asked to do is basically turn our aura off. And that's so painful to have to try and do. I can't help that I absorb. That's not me raping you, that's me absorbing your bullshit. So it's just as uncomfortable for me to be around you. The way I see it, I never thought I was going into people to get the information. I felt like I absorb the information and then I speak to like help push it back out. The absorption happens whether I speak or not. I'm gonna know if you're lying or what you're really thinking, whether I speak or not. For me, it's like generators walk around topless and are like, I can't believe you can see that I'm topless. I don't want you topless, putting your like chest in my face, but that's what it feels like being around you. It's just as uncomfortable for me on our side. It feels violating for us too when we absorb your sacral energy and it embeds itself in us. But we just aren't Karens. We don't put out that narrative, well, they're raping me. Well, they just stuck their penis in me. Because it's not that, that's just aura dynamics. There's an exchange that happens. And yes, we should be cautious. Yes, we should be aware. Yes, we should try and keep our auras like clean and aligned. But that happens. And we're outnumbered, by the way. So it's happening more to us. And it has more of an effect on us. And projectors aren't protected. We have a sword, but we don't have a shield. We absorb everything, just like you. But it's like we've never taken it that low of like crying wolf or playing Karen, nor have we ever really said anything or been invited to say our side. So it's this one-sided story that makes it look like the projector's the big bad wolf and needs to shut up, and the generator is like this poor victim that now needs to like decide when the projector speaks and doesn't. Which would be okay if you were following up to make sure that was actually healthy for us, but it's not, and no one like cares. And it's like no one cares because it's like our feelings aren't as important. We've been branded rapists, which dehumanizes us, and that's not fair. And once you realize that, wow, this kind of thing happens in this community of bullying people, of the larger group can speak over the smaller group and play victim and play Karen. In fact, there's so much of that in this community, and so many of these women are probably just Karens in their real life. Some of them are even called Karen. It's like, of course, like lots of people fit into the demographic of what would stereotypically be a Karen, and I don't judge by cover, but it's interesting to see these dynamics play out. And I think it's wrong. And Karens aren't just white women, men do it too. People of other races do it too, you know, but this whole like, projectors are so scary when they talk, so they need to shut up indefinitely, with no regard for like how, like the negative repercussion that has on our mental health. It just shows that this community is so one-sided and hierarchical, and I can't be in a community where I'm being told my greatest gift, my wisdom, is disgusting and rapey, and I'm sticking my hands in someone's panty drawer. I believe Leanne Wolf said that. You get tired of being treated like a criminal when you're also being equally impacted. You know, it only seems to apply to us, and it's purely for the other person's comfort. No other type is told to live for other people's comfort, only projectors. We're being told we're bossy when we are the ones being bossed about, and told when we can speak and when we can't speak and what we can say. We're being bossed about and then told we're bossy. We're literally having our free speech infringed on. You know, and it did kind of like do a number on my confidence, because I started to feel like, oh, does no one care what I have to say? Because that's what people are saying. Oh, we don't want to hear it, so shut up. Being spoken to in such a like degrading way that's not constructive, it's not fair that projectors go through that. You know? And it just creates this paradigm where the projector's job is to be as inoffensive to the other as possible. It's our job to control other people's reactions to us, to placate other people's emotions, which is inherently disempowering, and it puts us on a lower rung. For me, that is creating a hierarchy. I will say, I gather that if you have a defined throat, you probably just need to speak every day. Depending on what center that's connected to, you might even just talk to yourself. I know I do. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't speak because you fucking need to, and if you don't, you'll probably get depressed. If I had like never spoken to anyone, never gone up to someone, never even gone into people's DMs, I have stories of doing that successfully, I would have missed out on so many opportunities. So I just really don't think this is right. I don't think they know what they're talking about. I just think they like the idea of controlling projectors. You know, people say, oh, you can't tell people what to do or suggest anything because they are on their own journey. You need to let them come to their conclusions on their own. But when you're telling projectors they have to shut up, you are not letting projectors come to their conclusions on their own. You're kind of telling them what to do and trying to force them to do what you want them to do, which is a double standard. So in conclusion, I don't think you can tell someone when they get to speak and what they can say and when they can't speak. Threats like you will get whacked, you will get slammed, you'll be humiliated and stuff. I don't think it's gonna have the desired effect. It's just gonna cause resentment. And sometimes I feel like it's just about making money than actually helping people, you know? And I'm only just getting back to the place where I'm realizing what I have to say is important and that I don't need permission. And I don't need anyone to tell me I can and I can't. Like, I have my own inner authority. I don't need to make sure everyone is happy with what I say all the time, you know? Because it got to a point where I really did become a shell of myself, you know? And realizing that I speak primarily for myself, not so other people can take my wisdom and apply it in their lives. That's a good bonus, but I'm speaking to express myself. I just have that need. And I just want to ask this question. Is human design an experiment or is it a set of instructions? Because if it's a set of instructions, say it so at least we know what we're getting into. And one more thing I want to do is read an article that also kind of speaks against this. Because I'm not the only one who has a problem. I'm not the only projector who has a problem with this idea of like, well, projectors just never speak because what you say might offend. I've got the article here. It's called The Human Design Projector Invitation, a Rant. So written by Christy Inge, 5T splenic projector. Let's go. Okay, this rant is specifically for human design projectors, but since all types work together, and it is super helpful when we understand how the other types work, it will be beneficial for everyone to read. With that said, let's get on with the show. When I first learned that I was a human design projector and that I need to wait for the invitation, it made complete sense to me. There was actually a relief because I had learned the hard way that giving unsolicited advice was a recipe for bitterness and burnout. If I had a nickel for every time I'd given someone guidance, asked deep questions, or given straight up advice, only to have that guidance rejected, I'd be rich as fuck, like Oprah levels of rich. So when I learned about this strategy, it only made sense to experiment further with that with what waiting for an invitation actually means. As time and experience have progressed, I've refined the process of waiting and knowing which invitations are correct for me. I feel projector success most of the time and rarely feel bitter. This is a miracle because I literally used to think that I'd die a bitter old lady. I often joke that I was the wise crone healer dying on the edge of town. It's something I'm sure I'll keep refining, but overall, waiting for the invitation has been incredibly empowering for me. I love that for her. But that isn't the case for many projectors. Many projectors see the typical explanations of the invitation and think that means they just have to sit around and keep their mouths shut. I've shown the evidence that is literally what we're told. We don't like pull that out of nowhere. They think that they are waiting for an engraved invitation to arrive from Hogwarts before they can do anything with their lives. When projectors are growing up, we are often told things like, just keep your mouth shut, sit there and be quiet, stop asking so many questions, speak when you're spoken to. I don't think I was told that too much. I wasn't a bit like actually told that, like shut up or anything like that. But yeah, I really had my fair share of like, you know, people being offended, like my family being offended because I'd point out that the sky was blue, you know. But I took that in my stride always. And I always felt like, oh well, yeah, that's me. In time, we become conditioned to believe that our curiosity, our genuine interest, and our ability to express what we see in other people is a problem. As projectors, we drill down into the G center of the other and get to the heart of whatever is happening very quickly. We are lightning fast at diagnosing where energy isn't flowing to its highest potential. We can see people's gifts and where they are out of integrity with their energy. We see potential and possibility everywhere we look. So when we are told to wait for an invitation, it can feel like a confirmation that those gifts aren't valuable. It can come across as proof that you really should just sit in a corner and be quiet. We are told that we need to sit in a corner until someone kind of validates us. And that just isn't true. The first thing I'm going to say about that is this, and it applies to everyone. If any explanation about your design comes across as disempowering, limiting, or like it will make your life smaller in some way, it isn't a correct interpretation for you. It doesn't matter if it's from someone who is well respected by the HD fundamentalists. It doesn't matter if it's the most popular HD account on Instagram. It doesn't matter if Ruhu visits you in your dreams and gives you a 7-hour dissertation on your design. It doesn't matter if it's me, if it feels too small. I repeat, if it feels too small, it is. We live in an expansive universe. Everything on this planet has a deeply embedded imperative to grow and expand. And the way things land in our body is a clue, revealing where our opportunities for expansion are. Of course, that doesn't mean everything needs to feel good in our bodies. In fact, the most empowering truths in our lives will land with a bit of a sting, but even with that sting, it will ring loud with the truth of empowerment. So back to this whole projector invitation thing. When you see something that applies, that as a projector you should be sitting in a corner and not expressing yourself, stop believing that bullshit. It's not fucking true. You are made of magic and have incredible guidance and wisdom to offer this world. Instead, I invite you to consider these thoughts about the invitation. Waiting for the invitation is for your success, not for the other person's comfort. The way it's often portrayed is that it is so uncomfortable to be in the presence of an uninvited projector. People say that projectors should wait so that others don't feel uncomfortable around them. That is some codependent bullshit right there. If someone doesn't like your guidance, they have free will and can walk away. Their discomfort is their responsibility, not yours. You, my dear projector, are not here to make people feel comfortable. You're here to share what you see, and what you see isn't always going to be roses and butterflies. Sorry. You are here to lead people, organizations, and systems to their highest potential, and that shit is uncomfortable as fuck. In fact, when you are truly invited by someone, they will appreciate the discomfort that comes up in your presence. They will seek you out just for the discomfort. They will know that discomfort is a natural part of their expansion. They will pay you money for making them uncomfortable. So when you're thinking about the invitation, remember that it's about your success. You cannot create success in your life if you're wasting your leadership vision on guidance on people who aren't ready, willing, or able to receive it. The invitation is for you. You need to be told that this will make your life better, this will help you, this will make it happy. You'll just be so happy when you're invited and finally get to speak, it will be worth it. And to just be getting more and more miserable and disconnected from, like, I wish this was treated like a thing where we could experiment and come back with our findings instead of like a command. I wish we didn't play these underhanded games of pretending that someone talking is so painful that they just need to shut up. I wish we didn't do this. I wish it hadn't happened like this, like, and you almost don't realize how hard it's been, like, so I want to say, like, my two pieces, I don't think the strategy applies to talking or giving advice. I don't think anyone should just be willy-nilly giving unsolicited advice. I think we should all employ tact. We should all consider the other person, but we need to consider ourselves and our authorities and what we want to do. And I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching.